Hey, what's up peoples? Hardleg Joe here with the deck profile for Prank-Kids Nemeses. All the power of meta contender Prank-Kids now with new banishing synergy and 50% more boss monster. Going over our deck list, we've got 1 Eschatos, 1 Prankratops, 3 each of Rocky, Bernie, Misty, and Ringo, 3 of the worst hand trap, 3 Nemesearcher, and 3 Keystone Light. For spells, we've got 1 Noodle, 1 Flower, 3 Swirly cards, a real estate agent, 2 Thunder Swirly cards, a trio of Archetype Swirly cards, a Prank, and 3 moderately priced homes. Our only traps are 2 copies of the Master Plan. Our extra deck consists of 2 Alfred, 1 Stiff Rocket, 1 Wet Gusher, Toad, the Link Kaiju, Blue Dragon, Yellow Unicorn, 3 cocks, a bitch, and some puss. I didn't realize it until now, but I think these extra deck monsters are the prank. I think they're trying to prank me with some innuendo or something. Regardless, let's talk about how to actually play this deck. Prank-Kids is one of those archetypes where its strength comes from the fact that it's a fairly small self-contained engine. Strip it down to just the core cards, and this is what you end up with. You can maybe cut a couple of these, but most competitive builds I saw were playing these 26 cards in the main deck. As for the rest of the slots, you can honestly play whatever you want here, and your choices will determine how competitive the deck is. Fill this empty space with all the best hand traps, and you'll have a very powerful meta contender. Fill this with anything else, and you can make this deck more or less casual depending on your preference. Now, if you're already a master prankster and you just want to know about my tech cards, then you can skip ahead to the time code on the screen. There, I'll explain everything that I added to the deck. For now, I'm going to give a basic rundown of Prank-Kids for any beginners in the crowd. Alright, so Prank-Kids as an engine is all about getting to Battle Butler. This is a 3000 attack fusion monster that can tribute itself, as a quick effect, to destroy all monsters your opponent controls. It's essentially Raigeki during your opponent's turn, which is a very strong form of disruption. Your job is to make this as often as possible. To do this, you're going to need one of your many fusion spells, along with 3 specific Prank-Kids: Wind, Water, and Fire. The Earth Prank-Kid can't be used, which is why some people opt to only play this at 2. Regardless though, you can get all 3 of the Prank-Kids you need and a fusion spell with a simple 1-card combo. And that 1 card can be any Prank-Kid, which is what makes this engine so effective. To show you how that works, let's jump into the test hand. Alright, so step 1 is you normal summon any Prank-Kid, and then use it to link summon your Link 1. All the Prank-Kids share a common effect, which says, if this card is sent to the graveyard, because it's used as material for a Prank-Kids extra deck monster, you can summon another Prank-Kid from the deck, and then do some bonus effect. Most of the bonus effects don't matter much. The Fire one burns your opponent for 500, the Water gives you 1000 life points. The only potentially important one for the combo is Wind, which is what we're going to summon now. Using Wind and your Link 1, you'll make one of your Link 2s, a little card called Doodle-Doo. On summon, this will search any Prank-Kid spell trap. A Wind's effect will trigger at the same time, and it says to dump a prank card from your deck to the graveyard before you summon. What you send off of Wind can sometimes be important, but in this case, I'm just going to send 1 copy of Fusion to make a point later. As for the summon, in this case we're going to have to go for Water, since we already have the Fire and Wind in the grave. Then our spell trap search off of Doodle-Doo resolves, and since we don't have our Fusion, we're going to grab that. So now the final part of our combo is to activate Rockadoodle's second effect, which is to tribute itself and add any 2 Prank-Kid cards from grave to hand. In this case, we're going to grab the 2 monsters we need, but if you already had copies of them in hand, you could just as easily add the Fusion back instead. Or any other Prank-Kid spell trap for that matter. That's why Fansy's effect is actually important sometimes, because it can set up your graveyard for Doodle-Doo. Depending on the situation, you can either get a bonus spell trap, or, like if the Prank-Kid we started with was Roxy's, we could have sent fire from the deck to the grave in order to get to this point in the combo. But I digress. In this case, we're going to get both of the monsters back to hand, and now that we have all 3 names that we need and a fusion card, what we want to do now is set the fusion and end your turn. Because all the Prank-Kids effects are hard once per turn, so while you could make Battle Butler during your turn, you wouldn't get a summon off of Lampsies or Fansies since you already used them this turn. By waiting to fusion summon until your opponent's turn, you can trigger all 3 Prank-Kids when you summon Battle Butler. And there you go. This way you not only get a boss monster on the field, but a nice wall as well to help defend you against anything you might encounter. Not that you'll need much defending though, because there is one more thing I neglected to mention until now. You remember that Link 1 we used in our first summon? It doesn't do anything on the field, but in the graveyard it has a very interesting effect. It says during your opponent's turn, if a Prank Kid would tribute itself to activate its effect, you can banish this card instead. Which means your Battle Butler isn't just one quick effect Raigeki, it's 2 of them, because it isn't once per turn. I mean, why would it be? It needs to tribute itself off the field to activate the effect. Except now, the cat acts as one of those tributes, letting you wipe the board twice during your opponent's turn, which can be very difficult for most decks to play through. So yeah, that's the combo, and remember, this was all done with just a single card. You'll have 4 others in your hand to help you deal with your opponent, and if they leave even one prank alive on your side of the field, you can do the whole combo over again on your next turn. So now that you understand the combo, that explains most of these core cards. You need to open with at least 1 Prank Kid, so we're playing 3 copies of each, 3 of the field spell, which searches a Prank Kid when you activate it, a terraforming to search the field spell, and a 1-for-1 which can get Fansies in particular, since it's a level 1 monster. That's 17 cards that all start your combo, which practically guarantees that you'll always be able to get off to the races. Pandemonium, the fusion spell, is something you can search, but we play it at 3 along with 3 polymerization for one big reason: hand trap insurance. Let's go back to our 1-card combo for a second, but imagine that something bad happens. I summon the Prank Kid, use it to make the link, but then when I try to summon another one from the deck, it gets hit by Ash Blossom. That would be the end of my combo if all I had was the 1 Prank Kid. However, since I have polymerization and another prank in hand, I can not only keep going, I can make the combo better. Any 2 Prank Kids fused together makes Rocket Ride, so I can use the prank in my hand and the link to make that. This will trigger the prank in my hand, letting me summon another one from the deck. And if I wanted to, I could just link these off to make Doodle Do and continue the combo from here, just like the previous one. Rocket, however, has an effect. Well, it has 2 effects, but the important one here is it can tribute itself off to target 2 pranks in the graveyard and summon them. This will actually get us 3 materials on board, which means if we organize things right with Doodle Do, we can end on our 3 main pranks, a fusion, and an additional spell trap of our choosing. Usually Prank Kids pranks, a one-of we play to help with the grind game. This is a continuous spell that says, during the end of your turn, shuffle 3 pranks from the grave back into the deck and draw a card. This keeps us from running out of resources, and while drawing in the end phase isn't always useful, it certainly can be when your deck is full of hand traps. But yeah, you understand the monsters and the fusions. All that really leaves then is the few remaining cards. Instant Fusion, for example, can be used to make Rocket Ride, just another extender if need be. And Thunder Dragon Fusion lets you summon a Thunder-type fusion monster by shuffling the materials from your grave, field, or banished pile back into the deck. If you didn't know, Battle Butler is actually a Thunder, which means this card is an awesome comeback if you've got 3 main pranks in the grave. or it can be an excellent extender if you play 2 Battle Butlers and want to summon both of them. Speaking of which, let's go back to my version of the deck and my unique tech cards. So my build came about because I noticed that the main weak point in the Prank-Kids lineup is Roxy's. He can't be used to make Battle Butler, and his bonus effect sometimes screws you over. Before he's summoned, you have to banish a card from your hand and then draw a card. Not only does this mean Roxy's is technically a 1.5 card combo since you'll need something in hand to banish, but Prank-Kids don't really like banishing. It's not something they want to do. It is something that the Nemesis want to do though, which is why we maxed out on Roxy's and added this small Nemesis package. The low-level monsters can both be summoned by shuffling a banished monster back into the deck, which lets you recycle your Prank-Kids while building more field presence at the same time. Keystone doesn't really do much when summoned, but if it's banished, it returns to your hand at the end of the turn, which means if you use it for Roxy's effect, it becomes a +1 instead of a break even. Flag, meanwhile, searches a Nemesis once per turn, which is what allows you to get a Shatos. This 3000 attack dragon can only be summoned from your hand by banishing 3 monsters with different types from your field or graveyard. This is great because all the Prank-Kids have different types, and you're going to get all 3 into your graveyard over the course of just 1 turn. And even if you banish them, Thunder Dragon Fusion can fusion summon by shuffling them back into the deck, which is why we play 2 of these and 2 Battle Butler. Not only is the synergy there though, but in addition to this beefy stat line, Shatos has an awesome effect, where once per turn, you can declare a monster type, destroy all monsters of that type on the field, and then until the end of the next turn, neither player can summon monsters with that type. So like, you declare Machine against Drytrons, and they just can't summon next turn. Declare Wing Beast against Tri-Brigade, and you keep them off Shureg. Whether you're trying to close out games, or use this as a recovery tool, or just use it to bait out negations so that you can then do your Prank-Kids stuff, I think there's some serious contention with putting this in the deck alongside Flag. Keystone, I'm a little less certain about. After playing this deck for a couple weeks, I thought he was fine at 3, but if you're taking this more seriously, maybe skip this one. Same thing with Ghost Mourner. To be honest, I only played this because I wanted to try out a new hand trap I had never played before, and while there were a few times I was happy I had this, it's good when your opponent tries to summon during your turn, there are far more times when I would have preferred to just have Effect Veiler or Ash. Pankratops, meanwhile, I mostly just played for the pun. He's a Prankratops. I mean, he's a damn good card, don't get me wrong, especially in the grind game, and worth siding in if you're going second, but not really a mandatory include by any means. All that really leaves as far as tech cards is Prank-Kids Plan, which I think is actually kind of underrated. On the field, it lets you link summon during your opponent's turn, which can actually be a blowout against back row heavy decks. Because your main Butler combo usually leaves you with 4 Prank-Kids on the field. So if your opponent decides to not summon anything and instead set a bunch of back row, you can use this to link them all away into Rip, Roar, and Roaster. If you don't know, this Link 4 essentially has the same effect as Battle Butler, except it destroys all your opponent's spell traps instead of their monsters. Which means, if they set 5, you could do this in the end phase, and that's just game. You've just won at that point. Really, that's more of like a side deck play, though. Mostly the reason I play this is for its graveyard effect. When your opponent attacks you, you can banish this to shuffle any number of Prank-Kid cards from your graveyard back into the deck, and then the attacking monster loses 100 attack for each card you shuffled. It's a cheesy little battle trick, I know, but I can't tell you how many times this has won me games, either because it's non-targeting damage step shenanigans, or simply because this recycles the entire graveyard at once, letting you recover everything and essentially start the duel over from scratch. I played it at 2 just because I face more back row decks online, but you could easily just play this at 1 and send it off of Fansies if you've got nothing else to send to the graveyard. All that really leaves then is the extra deck and the side deck, and because this video has already been going on for way too long, I'm just going to gloss over it real quick. Play Toad, you can make it with Dropsies. Weather Washers turns all your prank kids into Armades, which sometimes wins you game. Bow Wow is another link too. It can tribute itself like Doodle Doo to recover cards from your graveyard, except it can only do it during your opponent's turn, which is sometimes something you want to do, but not enough to play it at more than one. Underworld Goddess is amazing in this deck, because all your removal is destruction or battle-based, which means you can't really deal with anything indestructible unless you're using this. That being said, if you want to replace this or Unicorn with whatever you want, you can. Most meta versions will play stuff like Access Code Talker, IP Masquerena. You could put just about anything in here though. The side deck is really just full of alternate options, things you could consider to use for your 14 slots or in the couple extra spaces you have for your extra deck. The only thing really worth mentioning is Parallel Exceed, which saw a lot of success in a recent first place build by a duelist named Pack. If you want to see a competitive version of this deck, I would strongly recommend looking up his video. He's got the most experience with the deck, topping and events and stuff, and he plays this to chain block with your Link 1. It's not something I really needed to do online because the ceiling is much lower, but if you're playing this competitively, definitely something to consider. But yeah, that brings this overly long deck profile to a close. If you like these long, detailed breakdowns, please like the video to show your support, subscribe for more deck profiles, maybe consider joining my Patreon, giving me $1 to show that you like this stuff. Regardless of what you do though, thanks for watching, and until next time, good luck and have fun.